Of the 11 art galleries in London, the same predicament awaits every enthusiast, no matter which art gallery they enter. Two people can look at the same picture and yet see a different story that the artist has painted. This passage reveals to us two pictures, a picture of grace, free undeserved favour, and a picture of greed, man's sinfulness. Naaman the general with power and prestige, Gehazi the servant and student of the man of God. Our passage highlights the difference between Naaman getting down from his privileged position and the downward spiral of Gehazi. Naaman a general full of gratitude, Gehazi a servant consumed with greed. Gehazi planned to deceive both Naaman and Elisha. All he could imagine was the happiness that wealth and riches would bring him. The story is introduced with Gehazi being described as the servant of Elisha, the man of God. Here's one of the things that make this story so sad and at the same time a warning to each of us. He was not a man without opportunities. As a servant of Elisha, he was also a student of Elisha. He had the privilege of knowing this great man of God. He had the example of Elisha's life and the message of his lips as a tremendous source of instruction, challenge, learning, and motivation for godliness and a life of service. Yet he failed to benefit and grow through this privilege. Gehazi has seen Elisha's relationship with God. He's seen the miracles. He's been part of the miracle-making team. He's even been the middleman between the Shunammite mother and Elisha, and between Elisha and Naaman. Every day Gehazi is in the presence of a very special and spiritual man of God. Every day he is the recipient of prayers for him to grow in his relationship with God. Verse 21 tells us that Naaman descended from the chariot and asked Gehazi the question, "Is everything okay?" Translated, that literally means, "Is everything well?" Well, friend, I want to ask you a question. Is everything well with you? When was the last time you asked yourself, is everything well with my soul? The story of Gehazi is a sad story. It's one which happens thousands of times every day in the lives of many believers. In Naaman's story, leprosy portrays sin in its universal scope as it falls upon all people. But in the story of Gehazi, we see the specific sin of greed, covetousness and materialism in the way it destroys the ministries of people and their capacity to serve the Lord. And look at the process. In the story of Gehazi, we see the picture of someone failing to progress spiritually with false values that destroys their pursuit of righteousness, of someone rationalizing and seeking to find good reasons for a bad thing, a picture of unfaithfulness in the process of the downward spiral of sin. Friend, opportunity and privilege are absolutely no guarantee of success. Just being around Elisha was an opportunity not to be missed, but it held no guarantee of success. The disciples were with the Lord. They heard his words. They saw his works, yet they often gained no insight from these events. Mark 6:52 tells us their hearts had become more and more hardened. Elisha was a man of faithfulness, meaning he had the quality of a life full of faith. Faithfulness means dependable, reliable, trustworthy, loyal. Biblically speaking, a faithful person is one who can be counted upon to do what is right through thick and thin, because that person is full of faith. Faith in the values and priorities of Scripture and faith in what God can do. There was no faith or grace in Gehazi, only greed. Naaman's descent from his chariot to meet Elisha's servant was a mark of his being a changed man. No longer a proud, arrogant person, the grateful and humble Syrian came down from his honoured place to meet the prophet's servant. He who had been a fallen, hopeless sinner was the one who truly displayed the believer's grace. Gehazi, who had enjoyed all the privileges of his master's grace, was about to abuse them and fall from that favour. In his book, There's No Gain, Arthur S. Booth says, "Our souls are held by what they hold. Slaves still are slaves, even in chains of gold. To whatever we may cling, we make it a soul-chaining thing, whether it be a life or land, and dear as our right eye or hand." Gehazi was discontent with what he had. He had an intense desire for something else, something he believed would make him happy and satisfied. There's another picture here. It's a mirage, a false picture painted for us by the great deceiver. Deceitfully hidden beneath the brushstrokes of imagination lies the delicate hues of covetousness. And covetousness has its root in discontent. It seeks a happiness, peace and well-being held in the details of life, like money, position, power and possessions. But this is a mirage which can never be fulfilled and which always escapes us. Only God can give us true happiness and meaning in life. This doesn't mean the things we grasp won't give some degree of temporary happiness or security or meaning to life. But God tells us in Scripture that if we have food, clothing and shelter, we should be content with that. The ultimate cause of covetousness is our failure to pursue godliness in the Lord of joy for life and security. Did you notice that Naaman gives Gehazi twice as much silver as he asked for? He was a man who exhibited godly qualities. And so, my friend, I ask you, are you a person who exhibits godly qualities? Or are you known for your generosity? Or are you a person of grace? Or are you known for being greedy? For Gehazi, this wasn't a one-off moment. This had to be the culmination of many things. Things we're not told of, but things we could imagine had happened. He knew about faith. He knew about trust. Just seemed he was a little rocky on the obedience. Maybe the life of dependence upon God to meet needs was a little too much for him. Maybe he longed for a financially secure future and not to be financially dependent upon the Lord. Maybe when things got a little stormy, he wanted a safe harbour and not the open sea. When all he could hear was silence in the wilderness, he wanted to hear a voice speaking in his situation. Maybe he wanted answers, but all he got was more questions. Whatever he could not say with all truth was that it was well with his soul, because something took him over the edge that day. That something seems to be the seeming injustice of not being physically paid for his spiritual healing, and that was just too much for him. Gehazi would be ready with his explanation for Elisha, but first comes Naaman's exploitation. Does this sound familiar to you? No one would guess this about you. But does Gehazi's painting resonate with you? Is it a picture you can identify with, or is it a little too close for home? So what do? Do you follow Gehazi's example? Do you try and deceive, mislead? Well, he tried it with Elisha. Have you tried that with God? Elisha said his spirit has seen the deception. In Luke 7 verse 40, Jesus knew what was on Simon the Pharisee's mind before he even spoke. And in John 4, Jesus knew all about the woman at the well's life before she spoke. God is the all-omniscient, omnipresent and omnipotent person. So nothing is going to get past him. So be honest and share with God how you feel and why you feel like this. Maybe you feel unappreciated, still seeking the applause. Maybe you feel unnoticed or your appearance could do with a facelift. Maybe secretly inside you want to impress others with your perceived importance. Is it all about your reputation? Is it all about power? Is it all about recognition as well as the money, possessions and pleasure? Friend, if that's you, then look to Scripture for your answer. See, in 1 Peter 5:8 it says, be sober-minded. Be watchful. Your adversary, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion, seeking someone just like you to devour. But in 1 Corinthians 10:13, Paul writes, no temptation has overtaken you. None that's common to man. God is faithful. He'll not let you be tempted beyond your ability. And with that temptation, he'll provide for you a way of escape. First, be honest and realise you're not alone. There are more people than you know who may be in Gehazi's shoes. If you were to go to 41 Gorleston Road in Birmingham, and on the doorframe you would see many notches cut into it. Each gives the height of a young growing boy and a record of how much he grew over time. Friend, you and I were still growing, but spiritually. There's a sense in which we are growing in our character every day. The question is, in which direction are we growing? Are we growing toward godly character or ungodly character? Are we growing in love or selfishness? In harshness or patience? In greed or generosity? Honesty or dishonesty? In purity or impurity? Friend, we'll make many mistakes before we go to glory, but let's not make the mistake allowing greed to replace grace. Let's learn from Naaman and Gehazi. Let's grow in grace and walk in victory. Every day we train ourselves in one direction or another by the thoughts that we think, the words that we say and the actions we take, the things that we do. Friend, we need to bring God into our plans and prayers and not act as though we're trusting him in following his guidance, then completely ignoring his direction. Let's not reject the truth of Scripture with all its principles and promises either. But friend, let's earnestly pray. Like David said, search me, O God, know my heart. Let's ask God to show us the truth in our hearts. What are our values and our priorities? Jesus' teaching in the New Testament doesn't deal with our poverty or the sin of riches. He seeks to show us first the greater value of heavenly treasure and the foolishness of seeking earthly riches. Then he warns us of the seductive power of riches, the love which draws our hearts away from him and makes us incapable of serving him. And finally, he reveals how our unbelief underlies our anxiety about our material needs. Friend, be honest with God about your relationship with him. Come to him with your struggles and concerns. Don't despise the success of someone else. Ask yourself, what's the picture you want people to remember you by? By being alert, you'll stay faithful. You'll be able to resist the devil and he'll run from you. You'll be able to put God's needs before your own, and he will, as James says in 4:7, flee from you. In 1 Peter 5:9, you're told that you can resist the devil, firm in your faith, knowing that the same kinds of suffering are being experienced by your brothers and sisters throughout the world. Friend, we need to be on guard against greed. So please, please, please don't think this won't happen to you. Be aware of your relationship with the Father. Ask yourself honestly, are you satisfied in your relationship with God? What can you do to strengthen it? Is it well with your soul? Friend, grow in grace and grow in generosity, but you walk in victory too. When things go pear-shaped and it gets tough, that's not the time to take your eyes off of the Lord and try to do things your way. It's a time to say, through it all, my eyes are on you. Know that the mountain that stands in front of you and me will be cast into the sea one day. Through it all, my eyes are on you. Through the highs and lows, the tough and difficult times, through the joys and sorrows, even through the loneliness, you can say, it is well with my soul. When you've been criticised, spoken ill of, maligned, assaulted, when there's no peace in you, you can still say, it is well with my soul. When all you can do is trust, when all you can do is be patient, when all you can do is have faith, can you say, it is well with my soul? When the enemy presses in hard, when the enemy presses in and steals your joy, when he attempts to take your hope and whispers failure upon failure in your ear, when he reminds you of your past, can you say it is well with my soul? When your life's falling apart, when your finances have taken a tumble, when your health is going downhill, when sorrow after sorrow descends upon you, do you have the blessed assurance that your help comes from the Lord? That your failures, your sin and your mistakes are all nailed to the cross at Calvary? Do you know the one you believe in the one who died for you? Through it all, are your eyes upon him? Can you say it is well with my soul? When all you can do is trust and have faith and believe, then he'll not disappoint you, and you'll find that it is well with your soul. Friend, if you apply these principles to your life, then you can learn to grow in grace again and generosity. And I promise you'll walk again in victory. And you'll be able to know and say that through it all, your eyes will be on God. When you can say through it all, it is well with my soul, then I promise you that the rest of your life shall be the best of your life. Until we can meet again, friends, stay safe, stay focused in his word, and stay well. Bye-bye for now. Bye-bye.